Today I'm so pleased to bring to the studio Mary Cortani, who is an Army veteran and the founder and executive director of Operation Freedom Paws. Mary, why don't we start with a little bit about your military background?
Doc Springer, thank you for having me here today. And, you know, I'm a veteran. I'm a female veteran. I joined when there was a thing called the Women's Army Corps. And right after basic training, it became the Army. I signed up to become a military police canine handler. And back in the mid-70s, they would let females become military police, but not necessarily canine. So I fought some battles and got into the Canine Corps, became a handler, and they realized they couldn't get rid of me, so they invited me back to be an instructor. So I served for 9 years on active duty. 7 out of my 9 years was actually at Lackland, which is where the Canine Corps headquarters is, and it was joint services. So I've worked even back then with all branches of the military, to include customs and Secret Service, because the military was also assisting with working dogs for them as well back then.
So long time sort of expertise with working with dogs and dog handling. And what's really cool is that in your work now at Operation Freedom Paws, you have found a way to bring that very much into your post-military work as well. How did that happen?
You know, it's interesting. I grew up with dogs and loved what I was doing in the military, whether it was sentry, patrol, apprehension, narcotics, explosive, contraband, didn't matter, search and rescue. And getting out of the service is hard enough as a transition, right? And so I was kind of lost. Being able to take that and transition that into what I was going to do as a non-military person. And I got into electronics and high tech, but I never stopped training dogs. And so I was doing it for friends and family, myself, was doing search and rescue. And then I had another major transition in my life where I'm much older. The first time in my life I was let go of a position. I was actually fired. I had never been fired in my life. And I'm older, and an older female executive in Silicon Valley. What am I going to do? So I had to reinvent myself one more time. And I decided to fall back to something that brought me happiness and would bring a little bit of income. I wasn't going to make that same kind of living that I was making, but it was something I was comfortable with. And so I opened up a dog training business and just training pets, but I was still doing search and rescue and you know, other things like that, when I got a call from a Marine who definitely was losing all hope. And if you have ever spoken to anyone, even on the phone, you can tell if they're suicidal. And that was when I decided, okay, I have to help this fellow veteran. And we talked for a good week, and I made him a promise that if he was willing to go on the journey with me, that I'd figure out how to do this for him, because he had been on a traditional service dog list for several years. He was told he could be bumped up if he could raise $35,000. And as a last-ditch effort of hope, he was calling trainers, and everybody was telling him, yeah, we'll help you, but it'll cost $10,000 to $30,000 to $40,000. And a veteran who is struggling to get by day to day, just with the basic needs, taking care of the family, believing that they're not worthy of help to begin with. They don't have that kind of money. They're fighting for the benefits. They're fighting to survive. And so I made him the promise that I'd help him, but he had to go on the journey with me, because I had to learn what were the issues facing our veterans. And that was in 2010, January of 2010. And he became client number 1, and he had asked, he said, what are you going to charge me? And I said, nothing. I said, you know, we're going to go on this together. You're going to have to come to me. I'll come to you. We'll figure it out as we go. And that began the journey. And today we've worked with 463 clients, 80% of which are veterans, and the other 20% is made up of first responders and children.
What is unique about Operation Freedom Paws? What is your mission, and how do you accomplish it in kind of a brief way that people can take in and understand?
So I don't want to just give somebody a dog, right? We can all do that. There are some great organizations out there that have the trainer train the dog, and then they match them up, and the person goes through 2 weeks or 4 weeks of training with the dog. What I want to do, and what we do at Operation Freedom Paws, is to help our veterans to reconnect, to connect with a living being. And it's done in a bunch of different ways. Our program's 48 weeks long. So I'm not going to give you a trained dog. I'm going to give you a dog that's got some manners on it, and then train you to train that dog for your needs, because we're all individuals. We might all have, or there might be a group that has post-traumatic stress, right? Or a TBI, or military sexual trauma, or mobility, but they're not the same. Our responses are not the same. And so there can be similarities, right? But because they're different, treat them as an individual. The dog is an individual. Just because it's a golden and everybody says goldens are loving and they're going to make the best, that's not always the case, any more than people that say a pit bull is mean. No, they're not. It's what we do as humans. So we go back to communication, and we go back to that basic relationship. And for what we found is that by doing it this way, it's the Chinese proverb, if I give you a fish, you'll eat for a day. If I teach you to fish, you'll eat for a lifetime. And so that's what we're focused on. We're focused on the human, the relationship with the dog, which then translates into the relationship with their family and their friends, and allows them the space to be able to recognize that there is going to be some healing, there's forward movement. They can reconnect with their kids, with their families, with their spouse, and that it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to ask for help. And dogs don't lie. 60% of a dog's brain is dedicated to the sense of smell. And as humans, we do a disservice. Funny, we do that in a lot of different ways, but we really do it with the dog because dogs communicate with body language. And so they're mimicking us. If we hear something or see something, we turn our heads. So what are we teaching them? We're teaching them to do the same thing. And so they're no longer trusting their primary sense. They become upside down, and they're trusting their eyesight over what their nose is telling them.
They have amazing, you've taught me so much about the amazing abilities that dogs have to notice things like our chemical state and our shifts in our mood. Can you say briefly like how dogs alert and what they use in terms of the olfactory sense?
So I'm nowhere near as good at articulating this as you are, but we're made up of so much chemistry. And the one that I use that folks can relate to the most is the adrenaline response, right? We get startled, our adrenaline starts going, right? Well, that creates a chemical change in our body. And when you work to teach the dog to know your chemistry, if something in your chemistry changes, then the dog is going to know it. And what we don't do is, I don't do a canned response. You can teach the dog to nudge the same way that with mobility you can teach them to open the cabinet or open the door. What I'd rather focus on is that relationship and the handler paying attention to the dog to recognize the change in the dog's body language, right? And how the dog is responding to them, because that helps them to connect to other humans. It translates across. And some of the dogs, they'll escalate, right? If you don't acknowledge, you're causing stress in the dog. The dog is going to escalate its response, but the minute the handler acknowledges, the stress goes down in the dog, but it also changes in the human, because now they're focusing on the dog as opposed to whatever was going on. And it's actually beautiful, and it does it for a lot of different things. That's why we have the ability to have diabetes detection dogs and epilepsy, seizure dogs and all this other. It's based on our chemistry. And the key is to get, when I talk to our clients about this, is you have a baseline. Now your baseline isn't 0. It's never going to be 0 because there's always stuff going on inside of you. So whether it's a pain level, whether it's an anxiety level, where are you when you feel you're in a good moment? Yeah. And then when the dog starts, do we call it intelligent disobedience? If you know the dog knows how to sit and it's refusing to sit, why is it refusing to sit? Right? Do a check-in, go from head to toe. Do that inventory. Is it biological? Is it chemical? Do you need to take your meds? Is it emotional? Is it physical? Did something in the environment?
So the dog becomes a cue to really paying attention to yourself and others in a really different way. And to me, it was helped me realize this ability that dogs have. When we think about a dog can sense the change in us with its nose, the same way that if you or I saw someone whose face suddenly turned bright purple, we would be saying, hey, you need to go see a doctor right now. You know, something's really wrong. That a dog can do it with that level of clarity in smelling a difference in our chemistry. Let's talk though about the partnership between Stella and Operation Freedom Paws, because a spotlight of this AVV segment is on innovative ideas and sort of cutting edge things that are happening. Right. And we have formed a partnership where we're combining the stellate ganglion block, an injection that helps calm the fight or flight system, with all of the good work you're doing. And to go back to your previous point, you said dogs don't lie. And so I'm sure you have a story or two to share about how this partnership has unfolded and what you've observed with the combination of these two really powerful treatment modalities.
Yeah, you know, at Operation Freedom Paws, we're always looking for ways to add to, because the dog is not a magic pill, just like you've said about the SGB treatment. You need to be doing more than one thing, right? So the service dog is one tool in the tool belt. Doing the SGB, doing other talk therapies, EMDRs, all of that, it's another tool in the tool belt. And I am so excited about the partnership with Stella and the SGB treatment. When we started out, I intentionally picked those that were just starting in our program, because again, our program's 48 weeks. I picked those that were in the middle, and then I picked those that had finished. And I've always seen that we can get them to the dog can get them to a certain point. Yeah. But what if we could do one more thing, right? And what I've seen with the stellate ganglion block treatment is this amazing next step. So in each of those, there were different responses, but it's been amazing. Yeah. It opens them to be able to receive things in a different way because of resetting, right? So not everyone is 100% responsive, but just like I said before, they're not the same. So their response to it is different. But I've got to share a couple of stories with you, because one of our clients who is out working, and has been doing therapy for 8 years. Female veteran, right? Did equine therapy, did talk therapy, and she's a speech pathologist. And she was really, really struggling. She came to us, she got a service dog, and when we formed this partnership and I was able to offer it, she was one of the first people that I thought of, and this is one of our graduates, right? And so earlier this year, she had received the injection and the treatment, and I just got a text from her yesterday afternoon that is just so exciting because it really says it all. And so she got her annual review, and she was just blown away by it because her supervisor said that she has flourished this year more than any other clinician. And that for her, I mean, it makes me proud, but for her to receive that after struggling and wondering if she was going to be able to keep doing her job, that says it all, right? I have another one for you where, you know, and it's funny, the dog does not lie. So I have gone with not all of the clients, but probably about 70% of the clients to receive the treatment. And I know if there's a change, because what did we talk about? The chemistry in the dog's nose, knowing the chemistry has changed. And so as they're in there and they're prepping to go in to receive the treatment, the dog is all over them because they're anxious and they're nervous and they don't know what to expect. Right. And they're using the dog and they're using puppy yoga, right? And so then I hold on to the dog because the facility in San Jose was awesome. They let us bring the service dogs with them. They understand the importance of it. They come out and I bring the dog over to them. Dog sniffs them, gives them a couple of kisses, and then lays down. Yeah. And it's like, okay, something changed here. And so then as they're waking up a little bit, if they got the twilight sedation or something, and then they're looking at their dog and it's like, wait, okay, I feel different. What, right? And then it's so amazing to watch because the dog knows, right?
Dog knows. Dog doesn't lie.
Never.
Dog doesn't have artifice or
no.
to any desire or intent to mislead anyone. And so that's one of the purest forms of data to me when we had that conversation, you know, about how the dog responded to the stellate ganglion block procedure. That was just like, that's it. Because when I first heard about it, you know, I was working in the VA, this was 5 years ago, I thought it sounded really odd and strange. And what do you mean an injection in the neck? And it gets you calm in your own body again. But when you tell me these stories, I now go, that's amazing, but not surprising to me now, because there's been about 100 patients I've kind of watched go through the treatment at this point. And I'm incredibly excited about the work you're doing, because it's not enough to get an injection.
No.
You pair the injection that gets people calm in their own bodies with really good healing and connection. And that's all of the work that you're doing at OFP.
Yeah, and you know what I see with it, Doc Springer, is that when, and so it's, what I've decided is it's not going to be offered right in the beginning. They're not ready for it yet, right? Okay. They're still on this journey of trying to accept the dog's going to be able to help. But somewhere in the middle to the end, when that process of acceptance and change has happened, is when the timing, at least for me with the service dog side of things, because getting that trust, getting that openness, also I think enhances the injection working. They've got to be willing to at least believe it might help, as opposed to poo-pooing it, right? But when that happens, it takes it to another level. It allows them to open up the relationship and the communication with the dog in a different way. So we can get them to a certain point, and I've always known that, but this allows them to go to that next step. And another client said, you know, Mary, I don't know what to do with myself. There's no noise. And I said, what are you talking about? And it's like, the voices, the noise, it stopped. There's silence. I feel weird. And I said, well, what do you mean you feel weird? And it's like, I thought I would be anxious and I'm not.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to act with that.
Well, a healthy change can also be a change, you know, and people can react in ways that are, that the change can feel unsettling at times. And so another reason why I really want to do the SGB in partnership with therapy providers and service dog providers, and your program is 48 weeks. They get wraparound care and kind of a nice through line with healers. And the stellate ganglion block is part of the solution, but all of the work that's done to help them reset and then find a new normal is also critical. So.
Yeah. And I also want to report one other little thing with regards to that, because we work with the families as well, which also makes us different in the service dog world. But for our clients that have received the stellate ganglion block, it's interesting feedback from their families, from the spouse, from their children. And they want to know what do we look for, right? And you just observe, continue to do what we've told you all along. Watch the dog. The dog's going to tell you, right? And they're reporting that the dog is calmer, not alerting as much, right? And that they're seeing changes, and it's subtle changes. That all that communication we were focusing on with the dog, they're now having different conversations with their spouse than they've ever had. And it's a combination, it's the building block, right?
Yeah.
So, and we just need to keep putting blocks in place to help them continue to move forward.
100%. So where can people find out about Operation Freedom Paws?
On the website at operationfreedompaws.org, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We're out there on social media. So.
And you're right here in California.
We are. We're in San Martin, in between Morgan Hill and Gilroy, and we're celebrating 10 years as a nonprofit this year, even though I've been doing it for 12 years. And
I cannot imagine anybody else doing it like you do it. And I'm so glad that you found a way to take all of your experience in the military as a canine handler and do this really meaningful work you do that has blessed so many people, including people I know personally have been really helped by you in terms of that connection and training up the dog. So.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think every veteran is going to struggle with, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to do? And I believe, as a veteran, we all want to continue to serve. And we want to make a difference. And we're willing to rush in, but not ask for help. And I think if we take that and reverse it and say, when I help myself, I'll be able to help others, that they will find how that transition and how that passion can go and allow them to serve. It took me a long, long time to be able to come back and do what I believed. I mean, I volunteered with other nonprofits, I search and rescue, all that stuff. But that fulfillment, you can find it. Sometimes it'll hit you.
Right?
Yeah, hang in there,
it's
absolutely.
Not a straight line, that sometimes the path meanders, but don't give up.
Never. And the journey to get to where you're supposed to be, that's the excitement. Because there's always learning as long as you're open to it. And those skill sets that we learn that they don't teach us how to translate really do have value in the outside world.
Yeah, they really do. Well, thanks for coming on today. It was so much fun to have this conversation with you, and I look forward to getting this out.
Well, thank you, Dr. Springer, for having me here today.